Hi everyone, dzień dobry everyone. It's nice to be here after a few years of not being here. My name is Wojtek Kutyła. Some of you might know me from the things I do around the web, but of course not everyone has, so just a short intro. I work with web accessibility. I've been doing that for a very long time now. The first time I connected to the internet was in early 90s, and back then it was a very different experience, as you can imagine. I've seen a lot. I've been working for big, small companies, all sizes, all types, pretty much everywhere. Now I live in Edinburgh. I run my own consultancy over there, and what we do is mostly accessibility expertise, auditing, training, all sorts of jazz. I wrote a book about web accessibility too, sadly in Polish. If you'd like a copy of the book, you can find me later, but that's not important. We're not here for that. We're here for something else. And today we're going to be talking about some of the tools that we use daily and the issues that they are sort of connected to. Now, this talk is slightly different to what I originally anticipated. I thought it would be me bitching about the AI for most of the time. And there's some of that here, of course, because how could I not? At the same time, you will see that the talk will divert into a very different route at some stage. And I hope that at the end of it, we'll all leave the place with some questions in our minds that we could ask ourselves in order to just become better designers and happier humans. At the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. There'll be quite a lot of it, so don't be shy. Ask either in English or in Polish. I can translate, obviously. And yeah, let's just see what we can do here. So first of all, I would like to look at some numbers with you. They're quite important to understanding what I want to talk about today. Just last year, according to various stats I found, there was more than 500,000 of no-code or low-code apps published in the internet. Now, for those of you who do not know what low-code or no-code is or are unsure, those are the tools that allow us to create digital experiences without actually digging into much code. So tools such as Webflow, or to some extent even things like WordPress and Squarespace, sometimes more intelligent tools, or intelligent as lovable. We now have the, that's not me. I think we have the same issue with remotes as we had 2 years ago when if somebody else presses the remote button in another room, my slides switch. So that's going to be very funny because we're going to be competing on that. So let's see how it works. Worth taking a note about this. Anyway. So yeah, those tools are everywhere basically, yeah? And there's an estimation of the market value last year on roughly on 29 million of American dollars, which is a lot of money. This is a global market and it's rising very quickly, like we hear about them every day. If you look at your LinkedIn, your Instagram, or wherever you look for information, pretty much every second other post would be about AI in some ways. Now, Microsoft says that, whether believe it or not, 90% of apps and websites will be built with those tools over the next 5 years, which means that we have a big revolution coming. This is very significant. It's going on very, very quickly. It's not quite what we, I think, anticipated in general. There are some upsides and downsides to that. Upsides, of course, we can work faster. Downsides, we can work faster. So, we're going to be talking about this today and some of the issues that related to. Now, this is starting to worry me because this thing is now switching slides when I don't want to. So let's sort that out, please. Thank you. My LinkedIn is full of this information just like yours. Everywhere we have, new tools emerging pretty much every day. I actually stopped, taking notice, and it's very hard to lose the track of what's going on. Every other day I have a message from someone saying, hey, we started using AI in our company and accessibility doesn't kind of work for us anymore. Not that it ever did really, but it doesn't really now at all. So can you help? And I go like, well, I don't know, maybe. It's not to say that I don't like any of these tools. I use I use AI daily in my work. I rely on search engines that use AI. I sometimes generate things with AI. But I'm just not very relaxed about this when, they are everywhere and they are taking the world by storm, but everything just goes a bit too fast for my liking, and I don't think we have enough time for introspection here. There's also research that points that AI actually makes us dumber when we are using it as designers, not only designers, but just people in general. It impacts the way our neurons work, it impacts the way our memory works, and I certainly feel that myself. When I'm asking Perplexity about things, Perplexity is the one that I use. They don't pay me, by the way. I just say this so you know what I'm using. When I'm using it, I'm asking it questions that are quite sophisticated, such as like, find me a car with a petrol engine that could fit a family of 3 and a dog and was made between this and that year and has high reliability score. But I'm also starting to ask it like very simple questions as like, what can I cook from cabbage and potatoes? Or like, what's in cinema on Thursday? So I'm finding out that I'm really like starting to, I'm really sorry about this. I'm starting to struggle with this quite a lot, where AI is creeping into my even basic searches and things. So you can imagine that if this happens for me in my personal life, it of course happens at work, because somebody said one day that there's something like work-life balance, but what's that? If anybody knows, wow, tell me, right? So we have all of this. I don't want to say it's all negative, but it's quite difficult. Now we have all these tools, 500,000 of apps and websites created last year with the tools that use AI or no code or low code. And then we have this, yeah? We are in 2024, a year ago, I mean now in 2005 obviously, but a year ago, the WebAIM million website survey recognized the fact that 95.9% of websites tested failed even basic WCAG checks. Now, if you are working with accessibility, you would know that WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, sometimes called WCAG in Poland, is a set of guidelines that help designers and people who code build websites and apps in an accessible fashion. So this is like a big disconnection for me. It's like all these amazing tools, such a big market revenue, 500,000 websites, and yet most of the internet is still inaccessible. I mean, like, what the right? So that's quite tricky. I wonder whether the person in the next room has the same when I press my button. It's very funny. I'm really sorry. Basically, I can tell you from my personal, professional perspective that it's a guarantee that your app and website are not accessible. I can guarantee you that, okay? I've never had a client who would come to me and ask for like an audit or training or anything like that, and I would look at their stuff and say, I have nothing to do here. It's amazing. You guys are doing an amazing job. And I think that everyone does a pretty amazing job as much as they can, but what's happening here is that there are a number of factors we're going to be talking about that contribute to the fact that this shit just doesn't work, okay? And if you have any accessibility issues, any accessibility needs, anything that makes you use the internet in a slightly different way to any other human, and of course you do because we are all very different, then you would feel me. You know what it's like, right? Just a minute ago or two, I had a person paying for my book with the Stripe platform, and it seems to be pretty accessible, but they struggled a bit, yeah? So there's always something that doesn't work. And this is where it gets me thinking, like, are we not aware of intersectionality? Like, I think at this stage in our design lives, we should be. I think we've designed so much stuff that it's almost impossible to ignore the fact that it's such a diverse group of people that we work for, you know? We are aging, we are of different ages, different sizes, different shapes, different everything, and, you know, it makes our life a bit difficult to not design these things this way. So I think that fact that we should recognize our own privilege could really help us. And I'm quite astonished, actually, that there's not more talk about this in the design community. How come that there are so many badly made things around? Are we too reckless with these tools? You know, I know they are meant only for like quick prototyping or something, but come on, this stuff creeps up to live platforms all the time. I know it very well, I see it all the time, and I'm sure that I would be the last one to throw a stone. I probably do that as well. Implement things the way I shouldn't, right? Now, as I said, I'm not an anti-technologist. I use technology daily. Sometimes I use remotes that don't work. Sometimes I use my smartphone and, you know, TV and whatever digital stuff I find. I really like it. But I just think that we're starting to rely on these things a little bit too much. But let's talk about actual concrete things, you know, with the no-code and low-code output. So things that I see very often are pretty much these things on the screen here, a very, very poor implementation of HTML. Whenever you generate anything with any of these tools, the stuff that comes out on the other end, if you're not thinking about what you're doing, is really, really inaccessible, mainly because of non-semantic HTML. Everything is floating in the soup of divs, and that makes it hard to use. Everything is structured in a way that makes accessibility difficult. Many disabled folk would navigate through websites using headings. Not only them, but lots of disabled folk. And that actually often doesn't work very well. Information architecture suffers. There's a really crazy overuse of ARIA, Accessible Rich Internet Applications, which is an extension to HTML that allows assistive technologies to work very well. And the thing with ARIA is that it's quite enticing. So very often, what you would find is people would start using ARIA because somebody told them to, and because it kind of does really funky stuff, we go deeper into it. It's almost addictive. Whereas the first rule of ARIA is do not use ARIA. Use it only when you have to. Forms are inaccessible, such as the form on my Stripe app. Elements are nested incorrectly, and there's lots of accessibility issues and usability issues, namely for the fact that we produce code so fast that we don't even test it, we don't look at it, it just works, or it doesn't. And then someone could say, quite rightly so, maybe it excludes people, but it looks good, okay? And you go like, yeah, right, so it looks good, but it doesn't work, so who's a winner here? Would I rather have something that works or that it looks good? I can actually make it both. There's this very common mistake about web accessibility. People think that if something is accessible, it cannot be looking good. It absolutely can, 100%. So I think it's just to do with understanding that and kind of going the right way. And then, of course, because I'm moaning so much, some of you might think that I'm a luddite. This stuff is for making quick and dirty things, okay? And this is for making the web go fast, progress fast, work fast, fail fast, all that nonsense. I think that the problem with this is that a lot of it, like I said earlier, creeps up into the live code. And I see it very often. Funnily enough, there seems to be somewhat a connection. The larger organization I work with, the more likeliness is that the code that they generate automatically will creep up into their live stuff. So that would make lives of their users very difficult. So I think it's very important to kind of be thinking about this. But this is still not it. When I was working on this presentation, I've been writing all these slides, realizing that this really isn't the real problem. Where's the real problem? I've been trying to find it, and I think I did. So these tools are just doing what we want them to do. They basically mimic our own behavior. Most of all, though, the problem is that they are trained on crap. Okay? They are just trained on a bad functioning web. If we train our AI tools on data that's misinformed, that's malign, like the tools that we train on websites, where most of those websites are inaccessible, how can they then generate accessible code? That's impossible, you know? I mean, the problems with teaching AI stuff are widely known. There's no point bragging about this, but I'm just saying that to make that connection between the fact that the internet doesn't work, is not accessible, and the AI that's learning on an inaccessible internet that doesn't take much brain usage, right? But, you know, this isn't really my great-grandfather's workshop, but this is a workshop of some craftsmen in England in 1800s. My great-grandfather was a carpenter. Now, none of the furniture that he's made survived the war, sadly, but I've seen photographs of it, and those were amazing things, beautiful things. And from what I've heard, he used to disappear in his workshop for hours, you know, to build tables, to build chairs, to build cribs for babies and other things, and they were amazing. They were really well detailed, beautifully made, from very good quality wood. And I know from stories that run in the family as well how proud my great-grandfather was of doing these things. Whenever he would be coming back home, he would be tired. His hands would be, you know, covered in bruises and cuts. But he would be so proud of making this stuff and then selling it to people, and the fact that somebody might be sitting by the table that he's made for years and years, and generations of people would pass through that. Now, I don't know how about you, but I would like to feel like this when I'm doing stuff. I would really like to feel like I'm helping people. I would really like to feel that the things that I'm building for the web, even though, of course, their lifespan is not going to be hundreds of years, are actually helpful to people and work for everyone. This is the key, Just a few days ago in Edinburgh, where I live, I attended a talk of Tim Berners-Lee. If you don't know who that is, Tim Berners-Lee is the man who actually invented the World Wide Web. I mean, literally, the dude invented the World Wide Web. It doesn't get better than that, right? And his new book is entitled, "This is for Everyone." It's not, "I've made the internet," or "internet is fucking awesome." No, it's, "This is for everyone," okay? Our internet today is not for everyone. So that kind of makes me think, when I started thinking of my great-grandfather, I was like, right, there might be something in there, like, why cannot I be proud of my work most of the time? Sometimes I am. So I looked at things that I see every day, because these AI tools is one thing, obviously, but there's also design systems, frameworks, component libraries, all these shiny things that we sometimes take off the shelf to use in our product or a service. And they aren't really much better, because mostly we make decisions about them based on aesthetic choices. How many times have I worked with organizations that tell me that they've chosen Google Materials because it looks better than X? Yeah, cool, that's okay. I mean, it's maybe nice when you're choosing a painting that you hang on your wall, but we need to make more informed choices. Those components very often build with a total disregard for HTML, build quickly. Again, information architecture suffers. All of that stuff. We don't tend to test our things for accessibility. We don't really do that. Some companies do, but majority of them don't really care. So all of that has a huge impact on experience. And there was me sitting there writing this stuff and kind of getting frustrated with myself, because I really didn't want to be that person who would come and say, AI is shit. Because I don't think it is, but it's just getting more difficult and it's getting on my nerves. So who is to blame? I'm often asked that, right? When I engage with a client and they have something that doesn't work, or should I say, when I engage with a client and nothing works, they come to me and they say, okay, Mr. Consultant, so this is 10 people we have here, like point your finger at the dude or a person who's fucked up. And I'm like, I can't do this. It's not that. It's not developers, it's not UX designers, managers, all these people, Trump, Labubu, China, whatever, it's not that. I think this is actually a systemic failure. I think that we are all focused on speed of delivery at the fundamental expense of human experience. And the funny thing about this is, when I was writing this, I realized it's not always to do just with the end users. This is to do with us. We do not have a good experience building the things that we're building. I don't. Many people I know don't. Some of you maybe have that experience. But I think in your heart of hearts, you kind of know that this is all a bit wonky and weird, right? Where's the pride in the job? Where's the quality? Where's the feeling that you're looking at something that really works and delivers value? Very often, in many jobs, I've had it that I couldn't say where it was. I just couldn't find it, okay? So this kind of made me think more, and then I found this research from McKinsey, right? Generative AI tools, I'm not going to be reading this to you, basically are everywhere and da-da-da-da-da, and they have a huge impact on productivity, and they could add trillions of dollars in value to the global economy. And then I was like, yay, this is the shit. Trillions of dollars. Amazing. So let's recap quickly, right? 500,000 apps or websites built with these amazing tools of all sorts, automated, non-automated, but like really cool, shiny, funky things. 95.6, I think, if I remember correctly, of internet pages broken, not meeting basic accessibility standards. Trillions of dollars. Huge market revenue, and then things like this. 47% of 16 to 21 years olds in the United Kingdom, where I live, easiest for me to access that data, would prefer to live in a world without the internet. So like, wait a second, it's like 500,000 apps, 5 million websites and apps in the next 5 years or whatever, you know, like lots and lots of stuff that we make. And we have young people and teenagers thinking they don't want to live in a world with the internet. I mean, come on, like, it doesn't, you know, it just doesn't work. So I didn't really see this coming in 1996, right? I just didn't. So I think this is a good time to take a breather. Okay? Let's look at why is this all happening, okay? Because one thing is the technology, which we have everywhere, and that we use, and that changes our lives, and as we can see, changes people's lives to the point that people don't want it in their life anymore, which is certainly not what I anticipated as a designer a few years back. And then we have this huge market and all these other things I've been talking about. Where is the problem then? Where is the problem? Because obviously we live in capitalist society, so we make money to pay for our cars, for our mortgage, for our children's education and all that. Where is the issue? I think the real reason for this shit we are in is that 73% of European IT professionals are burnt out and stressed. Yeah? I think that's the real reason. Why? What causes this? We have heavy workload, unrealistic deadlines. People send us to conferences all the time, and they want us to come back with stuff that we've learned, and they will ask us, hey, Mike, what kind of 5 takeaways can you give to your colleagues? I don't have time for this. I have to put a photo on LinkedIn from the conference first, right? We have completely unrealistic deadlines. We have skills shortage. So like, I don't know how many of you have been in a situation when somebody would come to you and say, hey, yo, so for this, we're going to do Google materials. And you say, I'm just a poor Angular guy. I've never done this. Oh, don't worry, you'll learn in a weekend. You'll be fine. You'll just do it, right? This happens all the time. There's poor support. How many of you have been at work in a situation where you felt really badly, mentally, and you went to your boss and said, boss, I need to take a day off because my brain is just not there. And they were like, have another coffee from a machine over there. It's going to be okay. Figma it out. Yeah? So, expectation of being always on, right? I mean, I know that even now some of you are like itching for the phone in your pocket. I am itching for the phone in my pocket. It's in here. I kind of want to rub it from time to time because it's there and it's asking me to look at it, right? So like, how can we make good stuff if we just feel shit most of the time? How can we do this, right? In the current incredibly complicated political situation, in the current economy, in the fact that in the moment that we just need to make things super fast, how can we build good internet like this? It's impossible. Like, it's just not gonna happen. And podcasts, hey, I've heard another podcast about productivity. I have ADHD, so it's so fucking awesome because now I will be able to work 3 times that fast and then die flat. Or bragging about it on LinkedIn, or certificates that we post up there, that's just not gonna help. We need a systemic change. We need a systemic change if we are meant to make good work for good people, and if we are gonna make people have a good experience, okay? So what can we do? How can we do this? And these are the things that I'm talking about all the time, and somehow just everything always comes to this, which might mean I just have an obsession with this, and that's fine, I don't mind. But I just see those patterns. I've been doing this for like 25 years, maybe more, right? I see patterns everywhere. If you think that today, the issues that I'm fixing for organizations are different to what they were 25 years ago, you are wrong, they are not. It's the same crap. We have all this amazing technology, but we're spinning in a circle. It's like my sausage dog, right? I can make him go like mosh pit. I give him a piece of food and he was like, you know, he wouldn't end until he catches it and then he wants another one, yeah? We need to look critically at this, and I mean it, and it's not only politicians who need to look critically at this. We as designers need to stand up and to say, hey, shit doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for our users. What can we do about this, you know? Maybe we can change this. We need to review our own personal values, what's driving us. We need to look into our legacy. Like, what are we going to leave to others? And I know that the website that we're building for a bank is not going to be there in 10 years' time because it's going to be a redesign time or something, maybe in 2 years' time. But largely, I mean, how many of you were growing up without the internet? Probably not too many, right? I have. Some of the older dinosaurs did as well. Now, I have a brother who, for instance, is much younger than me, and he was always connected. Fine. So what kind of legacy am I gonna leave him or his children, if he ever has any, you know? So like, what's gonna remain after me? So like, for me, the takeaway is, why am I saying yes to everything? Why am I doing that? Or most things, when people bring me stuff to do, and I'm looking at it, and I know that I'm just gonna be building another banking app, or another insurance app, or something that will sell people crap that they really don't need. How many fucking smartwatches do we need? How many you have in your drawers that you've changed over the years because the next one is just cool and the old one isn't, even though you bought it a year ago? And we just say yes, we consume it like that. We just say yes, yes please, another one. Yeah? So like, what are we saying yes to every day that could actually change this? And maybe one day we could say, no, my dear boss, the way of approaching this is not only unethical, but it's actually not contributing to anything or helpful. Even worse, it's not actually even going to bring us any money. Yeah? So there's that. There's also a thing where people suffer because of our choices. So who is it? The person who bought a book from me didn't really suffer much at the end because she had cash with her. And relatively, it's not important. It's just one book, it's like whatever, yeah? But sometimes we make design choices that are actually excluding people in situations in which they really rely on us. I work a lot in the banking sector. Prior to my engagement with many of my clients, these clients sell banking services that many people cannot access. Whether those are people who use screen readers, or they navigate their websites only through keyboard, or maybe they have other needs, or maybe they just live in a small village somewhere and the internet isn't super fast. They can't deal with that. So there's always someone at the very end who suffers because of our choices. We need to be aware of this and know who that is. The question is, do we always need to make it fast? Or do we need sometimes to make it right? The funny bit is that my observation confirms that after a while of doing things right, you actually do them very fast. Yeah? At the beginning it's slow because you need to learn new stuff, and of course we don't have time for learning, so I'm kind of going in a circle here. However, once you do, you can do it right and you can do it really fast and you can do it to a very high standard. So maybe there's something there. Do we have the necessary skills, or are we deprived of them? If we are deprived of them, why is it so? Is it because nobody wants to transfer these skills to us, or maybe we're working too much and not wanting or having any strength to absorb new skills? How can we take care of ourselves better? How can I do it for myself, for my family? How my friends can do it? How you can working? Maybe we can stop. Maybe money or career progression is not always the case. Have you ever considered denying a promotion, knowing that it's not going to bring you anything more than just pain in the bum and more work? Maybe it's worth thinking about, I don't know. But I think certainly I will be thinking about these things. What's stopping us from taking those actions? I know I'm just a one random, rather crazy dude on stage at a conference in Poland, and I give you that. And I'm sure many of you would not agree with me, which is also very good, because you need to make your own mind about this. So don't trust anything I say, check it for yourself. But at the same time, something's stopping us from making things better. What is this? Where is it? What's really stopping us, okay? How many barriers are imposed on us and how many barriers we impose on ourselves? Remember, I have never met a single tech company, especially big tech company, that would care about anything else than profit. Never, okay? If they say they care about their customers, they do, because customers pay, because we live in capitalism. Capitalism is about making capital. It's not about making people happy. Now, don't get an impression that I'm a socialist or I'm into some other things. I don't actually know anymore where I am. but I really know that capitalism doesn't work for the internet. Not in the current way. It just doesn't, right? Companies give us tools, and we should use them wisely. We should be making them carefully. We don't pay much attention to this. If you work with WCAG every day, very often at your company you would hear, yeah, it's important for end users. It's like our clients need to have accessible solutions. And then often I ask in those situations, how about your employees? Oh, no, we employ 150,000 people worldwide. There are no disabled people there. Of course. And then I ask, okay, how about this and this and that? And then suddenly somebody says, excuse me, I have that. So, there's this philosopher, he's long dead, but he was awesome, Paul Virilio, and he said, every technology carries its own negativity, which is invented at the same time as technical progress. You might have heard about this. This quote has been reworked somewhat into the invention of the ship is always an invention of a shipwreck. Yeah? One follows the other. So I think the future can be all right. We can do this, but we need to do this together. Like no single person, no single crazo on a stage like this can make it happen. I can write 10 books, I can work with some of you, we'll change some of the stuff. It doesn't matter, because largely it will still be poop, okay? It will not be great. We need a collective force to move things around. Conferences like this are a great forum for making this happen. Today at the after party, when you're going to be drinking, drinks with friends and new colleagues, talk about this with them, okay? Just have a chat. See how they feel about this. What are they doing? Or maybe there is something they can do in their careers to fix things around. I think my great-grandfather will absolutely love this. If you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for him. He's long dead, but he would enjoy this, I promise. So let's think about all these things I said next time when you switch Webflow, Copilot, or Lovable on. Maybe we can actually make it work better. Maybe we need to learn something to give something back, something that would change the face of the internet that largely doesn't work for people, and to be honest, is speeding up so fast that there's not much hope anyway, unless we take it into our own hands. That's my speech for today. Thank you very much, folks. I believe that we have for some questions. I might be wrong, but we do.
Yeah, we have questions.
If you want to have a discussion, questions, whatever, if you feel shy, I'm going to be there later, so you can find me, but more than happy to.
We have first one actually in chat.
Amazing.
So let's read that out. Can you give an example of a good-looking, accessible web page?
I knew this is going to happen. Lovely. Thank you for the question, whoever asked it. So, of course, there are websites like this. Look at the Apple website. Accessible, they sell tons of stuff. Whether people need it is another story. I mean, I've been walking the Princess Street in Edinburgh the other day, and I seen like a 250 meters queue for people queuing for iPhone 17, some of them having 16 in their pockets. And I'm like, the fuck? Anyway, that's an accessible website. If you look at Gov.uk in the United Kingdom, extremely accessible website. If you look at Netflix, Netflix is pretty accessible, whether we like it or not. If you look at British Film Institute, another fantastic website. BBC, another great website. Websites of many banks around the world, some of them in Poland. I won't be mentioning names, but you can look around. Those websites exist. Just remember one thing whenever you're looking, 95.6% of everything you see in the internet on average is not accessible. So giving those examples is very difficult. And I think the important bit here is to remember that it's not to do with being 100% accessible. It's about making an effort and pushing that way, right? The way I say it to my customers, doesn't matter how much you work with accessibility, if you only start doing tiny things every day, tiny things, it's going to improve somebody's life. Today, you don't have alternative descriptions for images. Tomorrow you will. That's a step in the right direction. Today you don't have proper headings, tomorrow you will add them and you can do it. And then all the big stuff, big coding and things. Yeah, okay, give it time, step by step. I diverted, but this is how you make a website accessible, basically.
Thank you. All right, let's hear some questions from the audience.
Anyone? You can say anything, I can take anything. I can sing you a song as well if you fancy. It's just gonna be bad.
Here, hello.
Hey, man.
Dude, I just want to say this was awesome and a big round of applause for hearing this on stage. This is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I've been interested in this topic like for a while now, and sometimes I feel like I might be a socialist, but maybe let's not do these labels. What I want to say is just I came back from Hatch conference in Berlin, like it was this Friday, and there was this talk about macroeconomics and how it influences our like jobs, right? And there was this slide about that. Of course, everything is about profit, but this recession that is either here or like coming makes the companies to want to save themselves but increase the profit in the same time.
Of course.
And how they do that? They do cuts. Like my company fired 28% of the workforce last December, and in the same time they they want to maximize the benefits of the workforce that is left. So my company introduced 10 times more goals, 10 times more, I don't know, stuff like 10 times faster, etc. I'm feeling being squeezed like a lemon, right? So I started to like maybe search for a new place to work, and the problem is that everywhere is like this. I had corridor talks with colleagues like in here or Hatch or wherever. Everyone feels like this. There's burnout. I just want to, do this 10 or rule, wherever, like 10 minutes by computer, 10 years in a forest. So I don't also feel like me as a designer, I have enough power to transform the company I work for. It's a huge Moloch.
Yeah.
Driven by, as you said, profit. People who make decisions, people who my company installed on the top to make this decision, they do this because the stakeholders want to cut off their profit. And where to go from this? I mean, like, this is not your grandfather's workshop.
It's not. It's
And
not.
I'm really like, I feel like maybe I'm not going to say I'm awake because this is stupid. But what I mean is that when I realized where we are at and the system that gives us some security, I have a job, I can pay for my apartment, I have food to eat, is also exploiting me for the profit that it's not going back to my pocket.
Of course.
There is no chance for a revolution, I don't think so. But maybe there is something that we can do. Like, I don't know, open source is great, right? But positions in open source are very limited. So
what do we do?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this question. So the way I'm looking at this, this always takes me back to the basic stuff of what I often hear from people like yourself and what I often think about myself, like we can't do this, like how do we do this, how do we change this? And that reminds me of this little story from Rebecca Solnit, a writer. She wrote a book, Hope in the Dark, which is a very interesting book. And in it there's a story of herself being in Washington, D.C., I think in the 60s, seeing, or maybe it's a story she heard, but anyway, the story goes, in the 60s in Washington, D.C., there's a picket, there's like a little demonstration in front of the White House of women who protest for women's rights. They want to have women's rights. And there's only like 25 of these women there, standing, in the cold, shivering with the transparents, and like it's really a bad weather, Washington, D.C., it's like bad at this time of the year. So somebody says, oh, that's never gonna work. And now look where we are, okay? Okay, with the caveat that we're thinking about the States and we're thinking about the States now, and like, okay, I get you, like, come on, yeah. Obviously not the best place for women there right now. But the improvement over time gradually happened, because 25 or so individuals basically said, fuck it, I'm not taking this anymore, I had enough, yeah? So I think maybe in those micro movements of you saying this, of you talking to your colleagues, at the conference like this, of me doing this, maybe this is where it is. Because today, it's probably only me on this stage talking about these things, for whichever reason. Maybe at the next Ways there's going to be 2 people, or maybe there's going to be a workshop on how to design things ethically. I don't know, right? So I think our strength and our power to do this is in our collectiveness, in our community. Like, we can't do this alone. Now, atomization that we are facing now doesn't really help. Everyone's on their phone. I know how it is hard to go out and talk to people, and the younger you are, the kind of less capabilities you have, according to research, to kind of making personal contact with people and whatnot, talking about your things openly. But yet still, I think that's the only choice we have, the only chance that we have. I don't know if it's going to work, and I don't have any better answer for you, but this is how I'm looking at things, If me and you moan about this, it's 2 people instead of 1. And that's a group already, yeah? So, let's build a fucking table. Yeah? Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, okay, so let's do a little survey, right? I'm not going to be like, you're pretty anonymous here because I can see you, but I don't know most of you. Like, hands up who's felt like some of this actually did talk to them, a little bit at least. Yeah? There's at least 5 hands up. That's really good. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate this, yeah? So, regardless of whether there are any questions or not, regardless of whether this maybe irritated you, in which case there might be something in it, yeah? If it hurts, it usually hurts because we kind of feel strongly about this, so think about it. Regardless of how you feel, when you go home today, when you go home to talk to your pals, to your families, just keep that in mind. And remember, you're not doing this for me. You're actually doing this for my dead great-grandfather. He really doesn't actually care, right? Like, let's face it, he doesn't even know what internet is. You're doing this for yourself, you're doing this for your children, for your sisters and brothers, for everybody who's going to inherit the stuff we make today. And I think this is why this stuff might be worth your time. Thank you very much again. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.